3 years ago, Alina made a promise to herself. She would never see sunlight again. More importantly, she would never let the twin moons catch her outside when they rose together in the night sky. The underground tunnels beneath Terra Colony became her world. Cold stone walls, dripping water, and endless darkness were her only companions. She had learned every crack, every turn, every hidden passage in the maze of tunnels that stretched for miles beneath the human settlement above. Alina wasn't like the humans living in the bright city overhead. Her skin had a soft, pearl-like glow that made her look like she was made of starlight. Her eyes changed colors like precious stones, shifting from deep blue to silver to gold depending on her mood. She was beautiful in a way that didn't belong to this world. But her beauty came with a deadly price. When certain types of light touched her skin, her body would start to burn from the inside. The twin moons that hung in Terra Colony's sky were the worst. Their strange silver light would make her temperature rise so high that she could actually burst into flames. Elena's people had once lived among the stars, traveling from world to world. But their ship had crashed on Terra Colony when she was just a child. The crash had killed everyone except her. She had survived by hiding, by learning to live in the shadows, by never being seen. Every night, she would wait. To the sounds above, footsteps, voices, the hum of machines. Only when the twin moons were covered by thick clouds would she dare to climb up and look for food. She had become an expert at taking only what wouldn't be missed. A piece of bread here, some water there, maybe some fruit from the market stalls. The humans never knew she existed. They went about their lives, working, laughing, building their new home on this alien world. Lena watched them sometimes from the shadows. She saw their families, their friendships, their simple joys. It made her heart ache with loneliness, but she knew she could never be part of their world. Dr. James Rivera had been studying the strange energy readings coming from beneath Terra Colony for months. As the colony's lead scientist, he was responsible for understanding everything about their new home world. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. They seemed to pulse with life, but no life form he knew could create such patterns. James was curious by nature. He had spent his whole career asking questions that others were afraid to ask. What was causing these energy signatures? Was it some kind of mineral deposit? A new form of plant life? Or something else entirely? His equipment showed the strongest readings coming from the deepest parts of the tunnel system. The tunnels were old, much older than the human colony. Some people said they might have been carved by the planet's original inhabitants, but no one had ever found proof of who those inhabitants might have been. James decided he needed to investigate personally, packed his scientific equipment, emergency supplies, and enough food for several days. The colony's safety protocols said no one should go into the deep tunnels alone, but James was confident in his abilities. He had explored dangerous places before. As he descended into the tunnels, his equipment started picking up stronger and stronger readings. The deeper he went, the more convinced he became that he was about to make an important discovery. Something was down there, something that could change everything they knew about Terra Colony. Alina felt the human's presence long before she saw him. Her enhanced senses could detect the electrical fields from his equipment, the sound of his breathing, even the smell of his fear as he realized how deep underground he had gone. She followed him from a safe distance, staying in the shadows, wondering what he was looking for. She had seen humans in the tunnels before, but never this deep. Most of them stayed near the surface, only coming down to check maintenance systems or storage areas. This one was different. He moved with purpose, stopping frequently to check his instruments, taking samples of rock and water. Alina knew she should stay hidden. Contact with humans was too dangerous. But something about this man made her curious. He seemed genuinely interested in understanding her world, not just using it. When he stopped to carefully examine a formation of crystals that she had always found beautiful, she found herself moving closer. James had been underground for 2 days when disaster struck. His main equipment pack fell into a deep crevice when a section of tunnel floor gave way. He managed to avoid falling himself, but now he was lost in a maze of passages with only basic supplies and failing backup equipment. His emergency beacon couldn't reach the surface from this depth. His water was running low, and his food would last maybe another day. The temperature in the deep tunnels was dropping, and he didn't have proper cold weather gear. For the first time since entering the tunnels, James started to worry that he might not make it out alive. Alina watched the human struggle. She saw him try different passages, only to find them blocked or leading to dead ends. She saw him ration his water and food, trying to make them last. She saw him shiver in the cold, using his scientific equipment. To try to generate warmth, part of her wanted to help him. Despite her fear, despite her need to stay hidden, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: compassion for another living being. But helping him would mean revealing herself, and that was a risk she had never taken before. As James grew weaker, Alina faced an impossible choice. She could let him die and remain safe in her hidden world, or she could risk everything to save a stranger. The decision would change both their lives forever. Alina made her decision on the third night. She couldn't watch James suffer anymore. The human scientist had been stumbling through the tunnels for hours, his flashlight growing dimmer by the minute. His breathing was shallow, and she could hear him talking to himself just to stay awake. "Come on, James," he whispered, leaning against a tunnel wall. "Think there has to be a way out. The air is flowing from somewhere." Lena stayed in the shadows, her heart beating fast. She had never been this close to a human before. Not when they were awake and alert. Even in his weakened state, James looked strong and tall compared to her. What if he tried to capture her? What if he called for help? But then she saw him collapse. James hit the ground hard, his equipment scattered around him. His water bottle rolled away, empty. Lena waited, counting her heartbeats, making sure he was truly unconscious before she moved. She approached him like a wild animal approaching a trap. Every step was careful, ready to run at the first sign of danger. When she finally reached him, she could see how badly dehydrated he was. His lips were cracked, his skin pale and cold. Alina knew she had to act fast. She had found a natural spring deeper in the tunnels months ago. The water was clean and sweet, better than anything the humans had in their colony above. She filled James's bottle and returned to where he lay. The hard part was getting him to drink without waking him up. Alina had to be patient, letting tiny drops of water fall between his lips, waiting for him to swallow naturally. It took almost an hour, but slowly, his breathing became stronger. Over the next 2 days, Alina became James's guardian angel. She would appear when he was unconscious or too weak to focus, leaving water and small portions of food she had saved from her own supplies. She cleaned his wounds when he cut himself on sharp rocks, even left him warmer clothes she had found. In abandoned parts of the tunnels, James knew something was happening, but his fevered mind couldn't make sense of it. Sometimes he would wake up to find fresh water beside him, or discover that his cuts had been bandaged with soft cloth. He woke up covered with a warm blanket that definitely hadn't been in his pack. "Hello?" he would call out into the darkness. "Is someone there? I know you're helping me. Please, I just want to thank you." But Alina would always disappear before he could see her clearly. She became a master of shadows, moving like smoke through the tunnels. James began to think he was losing his mind. Maybe the isolation and dehydration were making him imagine things. On the 4th day, James's condition started to improve. The mysterious help had kept him alive long enough for his body to recover some strength. He was able to think more clearly, to examine his surroundings with a scientist's eye. That's when he started to notice things that didn't make sense. The cloth used to bandage his wounds was unlike anything produced in Terra Colony. It was incredibly soft and seemed to shimmer with its own light. The water bottle had been refilled with water that tasted different from anything in the colony's supply system. James set up a simple test. He pretended to sleep while keeping one eye slightly open, watching for his mysterious helper. He waited. For hours, controlling his breathing, fighting the urge to move. Finally, saw her. At first, James thought he was looking at a ghost. A pale figure moved through the darkness like flowing water, carrying something in her hands. She glowed softly, like moonlight on snow. Her movements were graceful, almost floating. Alina approached the sleeping human, not knowing that he was watching. She knelt beside him and began to check his temperature by placing her hand near his forehead. careful not to actually touch him. Her face was focused, concerned, like a doctor caring for a patient. James held his breath. Even in the dim light, he could see that this wasn't a human woman. Her skin had that pearl-like glow, and her eyes reflected light like an animal's. But there was something gentle about her, something that made him feel safe rather than afraid. Alina sensed that something was different. She looked around nervously, her eyes scanning the darkness. James made himself breathe normally, pretending to be asleep, but he could tell she was becoming suspicious. She left quickly that night, but James knew she would be back. His mysterious helper was real, and she was definitely not human. The question was, what did she want, and why was she helping him? The next day, James made a decision. Instead of pretending to sleep, he would try to communicate with her. He needed to find a way out of the tunnels, and she obviously knew them better than anyone, but he had to be careful. One wrong move could scare her away forever. James spent the day preparing. He found a spot where multiple tunnels met, giving his helper several escape routes if she felt threatened. He left out some of his emergency food as an offering, then sat against the wall and waited. Hours passed. James was beginning to think. She wouldn't come when he heard a sound like footsteps, but lighter than any human could make. He looked up and saw her standing at the edge of the light from his flashlight. Alina was terrified but also curious. This human had survived longer than she expected. He was showing intelligence, trying to communicate with her rather than just calling for help. Maybe, just maybe, she could trust him enough to help him find his way out, but she would have to be very, very careful. One mistake could cost her everything. For 3 long minutes, Alina and James stared at each other across the dimly lit tunnel. Neither moved, neither spoke. The only sound was the steady drip of water somewhere in the darkness. Alina's mind raced with panic. He had seen her clearly now. There was no hiding what she was. Her skin glowed like a lamp in the darkness, and her eyes probably looked like colored glass to him. She should run. Every instinct told her to disappear back into the deep tunnels where no human could follow. But James looked so tired, so lost. And something in his eyes wasn't the fear she expected. It was wonder mixed with gratitude. "You're the one who's been helping me," James said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't move from where he sat, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. "Thank you." Alina took a step backward, ready to flee. But James continued talking, his voice calm and gentle. "I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. I just need help finding a way out of here, please." Something in his tone made Alina pause. She had watched humans for years, and she had learned to read their emotions. This man wasn't lying. He really was grateful, and he really was asking for help, not trying to trap her. Still, she couldn't bring herself to speak. What if her voice gave away even more about what she was? "My name is James," he continued. "I'm a scientist from the colony above. I was studying some energy readings down here when I got lost. I've been wandering for days." Lena knew about the energy readings. They were coming from her. Her people naturally gave off energy that human machines could detect, like she had always wondered when someone would come looking for the source. "I know you're not human," James said gently, "but I don't care. You saved my life. That's all that matters to me." Alina made a decision. She stepped closer, still ready to run, but close enough that he could see her clearly. When she spoke, her voice was soft and musical, with an accent that didn't belong to any human language. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "These tunnels are dangerous." James's eyes widened, not with fear, but with fascination. "You can speak our language perfectly. How long have you been living down here?" "Long enough," Alina replied, not wanting to give away too much. "You need to leave. Go back to your people." "I would if I could," James said with a tired laugh. "But I'm completely lost. These tunnels all look the same to me. I've been walking in circles for days." Alina knew he was telling the truth. The tunnel system was like a maze designed to confuse outsiders. Even she had gotten lost when she first arrived, and she had special senses that helped her navigate. "Besides," James continued, "even if I could find my way out, I don't think I have the strength to make it alone. I've been getting weaker every day." Alina studied him carefully. He was right. Despite her help, days of being lost underground had taken their toll. He needed proper food, rest, and medical care. And winter was coming, which made the deep tunnels even more dangerous. "If I help you," Alina said carefully, "you must promise me something." "Anything," James said immediately. "You cannot tell your people about me, ever. If they knew I existed, they would come looking. They would want to study me, capture me." "Cannot let that happen." James nodded seriously. "I understand." "You have my word." Lena wanted to believe him, but trust was hard for someone who had been alone for so long. Still, she had already revealed herself. There was no going back now. "There's a problem," she said. "The main tunnel that leads to the surface has collapsed. It happened 2 days ago. I heard the rocks falling." James's face went pale. "Are you saying we're trapped down here?" "Not trapped, but we'll have to take the long way around. It's dangerous, and it will take several days. There are parts of the tunnels that are unstable, and some areas have bad air that can make you sick." "Then we'll have to be careful," James said. "Will you help me?" Alina hesitated. Spending days traveling with a human meant constant risk of exposure. But she had already committed to helping him. Honestly, after years of loneliness, part of her was curious about having a companion. "I'll help you," she said finally. "But we do this my way. We move at night, we rest during the day, and you follow my lead exactly." "One mistake could kill us both," agreed, James said. "When do we start?" "Tonight. But first, you need to eat. Something real, and get some rest. We have a long journey ahead of us." Over the next few hours, Alina showed James to a small chamber she had prepared as a safe resting place. She had furnished it with blankets, stored food, and even some books she had found in the tunnels over the years. It was the closest thing to a home she had created since arriving on Terra Colony. James looked around in amazement. "You've built all this. How long have you been living down here?" 3 years, Alina said, deciding to trust him with that much truth. "I came here after ... after my family died. I couldn't live in the colony above. It wasn't entirely a lie. Her people had been like family to her, and they had died in the crash." James didn't need to know that they weren't human. I'm sorry," James said sincerely. "That must have been very hard." Lena was surprised by how much his sympathy meant to her. It had been so long since anyone had shown her kindness as they prepared for the journey. Alina found herself studying James more closely. He was curious about everything, asking questions about the tunnel system, the strange formations they passed, the way she had learned to survive underground. But he never pushed when she didn't want to answer. More importantly, he treated her like a person, not like a strange creature to be studied. He asked her opinion on which route to take, listened to her warnings about dangerous areas, and shared his own knowledge about engineering and geology that helped them plan their path. "You know," James said as they prepared to sleep before beginning their journey, "I came down here looking for the source of some energy readings. Thought I'd find some new mineral or maybe a unique life form. I never expected to find someone who would become my friend." Alina looked at him in surprise. "Friend. If you'll have me," James said simply. "You saved my life, and now we're going to face whatever dangers are ahead together. Sounds like friendship to me." Alina felt something warm in her chest. Something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe she didn't have to be alone forever. Maybe, just maybe, there was a place for her in this world after all. But first they had to survive the journey to the surface. And Alina knew that the most dangerous part was still ahead. 3 days into their journey, Alina and James had become a perfect team. She knew every safe path through the tunnels, and he used his scientific knowledge to help them avoid dangerous areas with bad air or unstable rock formations. They had talked for hours as they walked, sharing stories and getting to know each other better. Alina had even started to relax a little. James never pushed her for answers about her past, and he seemed to accept her strange appearance without question. She had told him her skin condition was caused by a rare genetic disorder, and he had simply nodded and moved on to other topics. But she never told him about the twin moons. How could she explain that the beautiful celestial bodies that lit up Terra Colony's night sky were deadly to her? It seemed impossible, even crazy. "We're almost there," Alina said, as they approached a section of tunnel she had never explored. "Before I can feel air moving from the surface. We should reach the exit by tomorrow night." James smiled with relief. "I can't wait to see the sky again, though I have to admit I'm going to miss our talks." Alina felt a warmth in her chest. She was going to miss him too. Over the past few days, James had become the first real friend she had ever had. He made her laugh, listened to her thoughts, and treated her like she belonged somewhere. "Maybe we could still meet sometimes," she said quietly. "I mean, I'll have to stay hidden, but maybe." "I'd like that," James said immediately. "I'd like that very much." They were both smiling when they heard the sound that changed everything. A deep, rumbling crack echoed through the tunnel behind them. Then another, and another. "Run," Elena shouted, grabbing James's hand. They sprinted through the tunnel as rocks began falling behind them. The ceiling was collapsing section by section like dominoes falling in a line. Elena could hear the massive stones hitting the ground where they had been standing just moments before. They ran for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, they reached a large chamber and stopped to catch their breath. The rumbling had stopped, but when they looked back, the tunnel was completely blocked by fallen rocks. "Well," James said, breathing hard, "I guess we're not going back that way." Lena looked around the chamber, trying to get her bearings. This area was unfamiliar to her, but she could still feel air moving from above. "There has to be another way out," she said. "The air current is strong here." So when she looked up and saw it, a shaft leading straight up to the surface, like a natural chimney in the rock. And at the top, far above them, she could see a circle of night sky. But it wasn't just any night sky. 2 bright moons hung in the circle of darkness, casting silver light down into the chamber. The twin moons of Terra Colony were perfectly aligned, and their combined light was streaming directly down onto them. Elena's blood turned to ice. "No," she whispered, backing away from the shaft of moonlight. No, Elena. What's wrong?" James asked, concerned by the panic in her voice. "We have to get out of here," she said, her voice rising with fear. "We have to find another way. Now." But before they could move, James's emergency beacon started beeping. It had been damaged during their escape from the tunnel collapse, and now it was sending out a signal. "My beacon," James said excitedly. "It's working again. The rescue team will be able to find us." He pulled out his emergency flare and activated it. Brilliant red light filled the chamber, combining with the silver moonlight from above. The entire space became bright as day, Alina screamed. The light hit her like a physical blow. Her skin began to glow brighter and brighter, like metal heating in a forge. She could feel her internal temperature rising rapidly, her body's natural systems going into overdrive. "Alina," James shouted, reaching for her. "Don't touch me," she cried out, falling to her knees. "I'm burning up. I can't control it." James watched in horror as Elena's skin became so bright it hurt to look at directly. Her eyes blazed with an inner fire, and she was shaking uncontrollably. Steam began rising from her body as her temperature continued to climb. "What's happening to you?" James asked, fear and confusion in his voice. Alina tried to speak, but the words came out in her native language, a musical but alien sound that James had never heard before. She was losing control, her carefully maintained human appearance dissolving. As her true nature emerged, the light she managed to say in English, her voice strained with pain. "The moons. They're killing me." James looked up at the twin moons shining down through the shaft, then back at Alina. Suddenly, everything made sense. Her strange appearance, her fear of being outside at night, her insistence that they only travel when the moons were hidden by clouds. "You're not human," he said, not as a question but as a statement of fact. Alina nodded, tears streaming down her glowing face. "I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I wanted to, but I was afraid." James could hear voices from above. The rescue team was coming, drawn by his beacon and flare. They would be here soon, and they would find Alina like this. Clearly not human, obviously alien, burning with impossible heat. "They're coming," Alina whispered. "They'll see me like this. They'll know what I am." Then we need to get you out of this light, James said, his scientific mind already working on the problem. How long can you survive like this? Not long. Alina gasped. My people. We burn up from the inside. The heat will kill me in minutes. James looked around the chamber desperately. There had to be something he could do. He couldn't let Elena die, not after everything they had been through. Together. Not after she had saved his life. But the voices from above were getting closer. The rescue team would arrive soon, and they would have bright lights of their own. Even if he could find a way to shield Alina from the moonlight, how could he explain her condition to the rescue team? James, Alina said weakly, her voice barely audible. You have to choose. Save yourself or try to save me. But if you stay, they'll find us both. They'll ask questions. They'll want to study me. James looked at his friend, this amazing being who had shown him kindness and friendship when she could have left him to die alone in the tunnels. The choice was easier than he expected. I'm not leaving you, he said firmly. We'll figure this out together. Elena's eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. Even as her body continued to burn with deadly heat, she managed to smile. You, she whispered. James began working frantically. Using his equipment and scientific knowledge to try to save Elena's life, he had no idea if it would work, but he had to try. Above them, the rescue team was getting closer, and time was running out for both of them. James had less than 5 minutes before the rescue team reached them. Elena was getting weaker by the second, her skin glowing so bright it looked like she might explode into flames at any moment. The voices from above were getting louder, and he could see flashlight beams starting to shine down the shaft. Stay with me, Elena, James said, pulling off his jacket. Going to block the moonlight? He held his jacket above her like a small tent, but it wasn't nearly enough. The twin. Moon's light was coming from directly overhead, and his jacket only covered a tiny area. Elena was still burning up, her temperature rising to dangerous levels. James looked around the chamber frantically. There had to be something else he could use. His emergency pack, some loose rocks, anything that could create a bigger shadow. But even as he worked, he knew it wasn't going to be enough. Dr. Rivera? Dr. Rivera? Can you hear us? The rescue team leader's voice echoed down the shaft. We're coming down to get you. I'm here, James called back. But listen carefully. I need you to turn off all your lights before you come down. There's a gas leak down here, and any spark could cause an explosion. It was a lie, but it was the only thing he could think of to buy them more time in darkness. He heard the rescue team members talking among themselves, debating whether to believe him. Alina grabbed his arm weakly. James, you can't lie to them forever. They'll find out. Then we need to get you stable first, James said, his mind racing through everything he knew about physics and biology. The moonlight is affecting you because of some kind of energy. Interaction, right? It's like a radio frequency that your body responds to. Alina nodded, struggling to speak through the pain. My people, ... We absorb energy from light. Most light feeds us, makes us stronger. But those moons, they emit something wrong. Something that makes our bodies overheat. James thought quickly. If Elena's people absorbed energy from light, then maybe he could create interference. Like tuning a radio to block out static. He might be able to create the right kind of light to counteract the moon's effect. He pulled out his tablet computer and adjusted the screen brightness to maximum. Then he held it close to Elena's skin, using the blue-white light from the screen to try to cancel out the silver moonlight. Is that helping at all? He asked. Elena's eyes widened with surprise. Yes, ... a little. The burning is getting weaker. James felt a surge of hope. His theory was working, but he needed more artificial light sources. He pulled out his emergency flashlight, his phone, even the small LED lights from his scientific equipment. He arranged them around Elena like a protective barrier of artificial light. The rescue team was still arguing above them, but James could hear them starting to lower equipment down the shaft. He had maybe 2 more minutes before they arrived. Lena, listen to me, James said urgently. When they get down here, you need to pretend to be unconscious. I'll tell them you're another scientist who was trapped in the tunnels with me. Your condition is a severe allergic reaction to some kind of plant or chemical we encountered down here.
Yeah, but they'll see that I'm not human,
Alina protested weakly.
in this light, with you barely conscious, they might not notice right away.
And once we get you to the medical facility, I can figure out a better plan. Alina looked at him with amazement. You're willing to risk your career, your reputation, everything, just to protect me? You saved my life first, James said simply. Friends look out for each other. The artificial lights were working. Elena's skin was still glowing, but the deadly heat was beginning to fade. She was stable, but barely. James knew they needed to get her away from the moonlight completely before she would truly be safe. Dr. Rivera, we're coming down now. Rescue team leader called. We have medical equipment with us. 3 rescue workers rappelled down the shaft, their bright headlamps immediately filling the chamber with artificial light. James was relieved to see that their lights seemed to help Alina even more than his smaller devices. Thank goodness you're alive, the team leader said, checking James for injuries. We've been searching for you for a week. I'm fine, but my colleague here is in bad shape, James said, pointing to Alina. She was exposed to some kind of toxic substance in the tunnels. She's been drifting in and out of consciousness for hours. The rescue team's medic knelt beside Alina, checking her vital signs. Her temperature is very high, and her skin has an unusual coloration. We need to get her to the medical facility immediately. Alina kept her eyes closed and remained perfectly still, trusting James completely. The medic's examination was brief. In the dim chamber, focused more on getting them both to safety quickly than on detailed diagnosis. Can you walk, Dr. Rivera? The team leader asked. Yes, but she can't. You'll need to carry her up. As the rescue team prepared their equipment to lift Alina to the surface, James stayed close to her. He whispered reassurances that only she could hear, promising that he would figure out a way to keep her safe. The journey to the surface took 30 minutes. Alina was unconscious for most of it, exhausted by her ordeal and protected by the artificial lights the rescue team carried. When they finally emerged into the night air, James made sure to position himself between Alina and the twin moons, using his body to block as much moonlight as possible at the medical facility. James convinced the doctors that Elena's condition required isolation and minimal lighting for treatment. He claimed she had developed an extreme sensitivity to light due to her exposure to unknown chemicals in the tunnels. Over the next 3 days, as Alina slowly recovered in a darkened medical room, James worked frantically in his laboratory. He studied the energy patterns he had recorded in the tunnels, analyzed the light spectrum of the twin moons, experimented with different combinations of artificial light. Finally, he had a breakthrough. Using a specially designed light therapy device, he could create an energy field that would protect Alina from the moon's harmful effects. It wasn't perfect, and she would still need to be careful, but it would allow her to live a more normal life. When Alina was strong enough to talk, James explained what he had discovered. It's like sunscreen, but for your whole body, he said excitedly. The device creates a protective energy field around you. You'll be able to go outside, even when the twin moons are visible. Alina stared at the small device in amazement. You did this for me? We're friends, James said with a smile. This is what friends do. Alina hugged him tightly, tears of gratitude in her eyes. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't have to live in fear of the light. She could have a real life. Maybe even find a place in the human colony. What happens now? She asked. Now, James said, we figure out how to introduce you to the world properly. There are other scientists in the colony who would be fascinated to meet someone from another world. But only if you want to. The choice is entirely yours, Alina thought about it for a long moment. She had spent so long hiding, so afraid of being discovered. But James had shown her that not all humans were to be feared. Maybe it was time to stop hiding and start living. I think, she said slowly, I'd like to meet some of your friends. James grinned. I think they're going to love you. Outside the medical facility, the twin moons shone brightly in the night sky. But for the first time since arriving on Terra Colony, Alina wasn't afraid of their light. She had found something more powerful than fear. She had found friendship, hope, and a place where she belonged.